Hey, what's up guys? Houston here. If you ever wondered, like, how come my credit score keeps swinging almost from 50 to 100 points up or back, all right? So there's a reason for that, all right? And it may be because the way that you're actually looking at your credit file. You have to understand there's the two major credit bureaus, right? All right. So you have your FICO and you have your vantage scoring. All right. So by you having those two, most people, the majority of the time, they always end up looking at their vantage score. All right. And the reason they look at the vantage score, because this is the one that's usually the most accessible. Okay. And what I mean by that, like, Credit Karma gives you a free account. However, people are not aware that that's a vantage scoring system. All right. When you use Chase, it's a vantage scoring system. When you use Capital One, it can be a vantage scoring system. Okay. So, like, even with some of your credit unions and stuff like that. Now, if you find a credit union that's using a vantage scoring system, that's a very good situation, okay? And the reason why, all right, with the vantage scoring system, all right, granted, the numbers are the same as a FICO scoring system. However, when you using institutions like BCU, Baxter Credit Union, when you're using Veridian, they're using vantage scoring systems, okay? So that means that you have authorized users, you have rental payments, you have subscriptions, you have utilities that you can add on to your credit file, okay, to enhance your credit score, all right? Now, also, that can be done with a FICO 9 scoring system as well. So your FICO 9 scoring systems, like your PenFeds, your Navy Federal, those are your FICO 9 scoring. Even Wells Fargo is a FICO 9 scoring system. All right. So those are the ones that you would have the biggest influence on in terms of trying to boost your credit score up the fastest. Now, one reason I'm saying that is so that you understand. All right. When people tell you that, hey, you can increase your credit score up to 100 points within 72 hours. They're not talking about your FICO 8 scoring, okay? The reason is, with your FICO 8 scoring, they go through this full investigation, okay? And it can take anywhere from 25 to 35 days of investigation. However, with your vantage scoring system, like you dispute things through Credit Karma or something like that, then those items usually take 48 to 72 hours to come off the credit file. Now, that can be either good or bad. It depends on what you're actually challenging. Like, for example, let's say that you have authorized users, okay? So you have authorized users on your credit file. Now, these authorized users that you have on your credit file, okay, if the utilization of those is over that 10%, just 10%, all right, most people said 30, I'm telling you, 10%, then that has an impact on your credit score. That's the reason I tell you guys is keep your utilization with authorized users under 10%. And just also remember, with an authorized user, it's going to influence your credit score two ways, okay? If it's the correct authorized user, because all authorized users don't give you that same influence. Now, one way is that it helps with the aging, okay? So it helps with the history of the credit file. And this is a very big part of, like, when you applying for new accounts and stuff, it starts to re-age the file. So that's the reason I tell you guys, you may want to consider adding on an authorized user. You may want to consider adding on or rental payments, because most of these companies, they will backdate on the rental. All right. So that's the reason why I continue to tell you guys is certain accounts, even like with utilities, through Identity IQ, okay, they can backdate on utilities, and that'll also help age the file. So that's 3 ways that you can actually age your file, and it's very important because as you add on new accounts, your credit file is going to recalculate, okay? So that's the reason I tell you. Now, here's something that somebody asked me and I'm going to tell you. Let's just say that you got one of those high fee credit cards, like one of those progressive credit cards or something like that. Or what is that? Aspire or something like that. One of those cards that charges you an activation fee with a high interest rate and stuff like that. All right. Let's just say that you take on one of those. All right. Someone asked the question, can you delete this card if you're no longer using it? Well, here's the problem that you may have, depending on how old it is. Okay. It depends on how old it is. What I mean by that, yeah, it may be a $500 card, okay? However, it may have 5 years of history, okay? So that's the reason why, like if it has 2 years of history, but you done added on an authorized user, or you done added on an older, or you have other cards that are taking over that 5-year history that have higher balances, then that's fine. However, if that's your oldest card, even if it's a smaller amount, if you kill that history, your credit score is going to drop. Okay, so that's the reason why you don't want to do that. Now, talking about the authorized users again, here's the thing about it. We was talking about utilization. All right, many people have family members that may have did them a favor by adding them on as an authorized user. However, those family members, they may have already started utilizing that card. So what you're going to have to do in order to get your credit score up, you're going to have to you can call the credit bureaus. All right. I usually tell people to call the banks. So sometimes the banks may take a little longer. However, you can call the credit bureaus, and the credit bureaus may be able to delete that authorized user right away. Okay. And by them deleting that authorized user, I mean, when I say right away, I mean like that same day. Okay. And let's just say that they done use over 30% of that. If they remove that authorized user that has 30% utilization, then you're going to see your credit score skyrocket. You'll actually see your credit score go anywhere from 50 to almost 100 points. All right. Just from those authorized users. All right. And like I said, the fastest way is actually calling the credit bureaus and asking the credit bureaus to remove you as an authorized user. Okay. And they will delete it from your account. Like I said, you can do it with the bank, but it has to be an authorized user. We're not talking about joint accounts. We're talking about authorized users, so that you have some clarification of that. All right. Now, another thing you can do, again, is in terms of increasing the credit score, you can also ask for a credit limit increase. Now, some of you are like, well, I have credit cards that are maxed out. Well, look at your smallest credit cards, okay? So looking at your smallest limit credit cards. And what you want to do, you want to look for a loan that doesn't report to the credit bureaus, okay? So again, I tell you about the tribal lender loans. Those are the ones on the platforms. Those type of loans is the ones you want to look for. And getting a loan and paying down those smaller balances, okay, paying them off to zero, then asking them to increase the credit limit on those cards, this is also going to not only drop your debt to income ratio, just like with an authorized user. That's another thing. Authorized users, adding an authorized user on, it definitely will help drop your debt to income ratio as well. All right. So that's another thing that will happen. So that being said, borrowing money from those lenders that do not report to the credit bureau, taking that money, paying down the smallest balances on your credit report, the smallest accounts on your credit report, paying those down, then what ends up happening, your credit score goes up the fastest, and then asking for a credit limit increase. Okay. Now, this is going to give you more leverage because the credit score, you'll see that the credit score is going up much higher. All right. So I hope this video helps you. If you have any questions about business credit funding, personal credit funding, removing negative items off the credit, click the link in the description. Schedule a one-on-one consultation. Thank you.